welcome to Gifted Drams. This is where brands have sent us product, and it's things that I thought, yeah, I'd like to talk about that with you guys. But it's definitely a promoted product, and that's why this is going to be labeled sponsored content. I'm Daniel Whittington. I'm the Chancellor of Wizard Academy and Whiskey Marketing School. And I put all of the ones that people have donated into this hat, and I'm just going to pull it. And what we do is we pick it out of the back, we bring it here, we experience it together for the first time, and then I do generic internet research to figure out what other people are saying about it, and you can follow along. So let's, now if I pick up the same one that we just reviewed, I'm going to put it back. So I'm trying not to look, but I don't want to get another Jack Daniels in the, oh, hey, that'll be fun. Never Say Die. Bum, bum, bum. Feels like a 007 whiskey. Where is it? Ah. And yes, okay. All right. I don't know a ton about this one, but I know they reached out to me and then sent me this bottle, and I said, sure, let's take a look at it. It's called Never Say Die. It's technically Kentucky straight bourbon, but it says Kentucky provenance with English character. And that is weird. How can you have a Kentucky whiskey with English character to it? I've tried to do as little looking into this as possible before these videos so that we get to experience it together for the first time. But it does have a picture of a horse on the front, like a horse race, like Kentucky Derby. And also on the back has some like coat of arms style kind of things, you know. The founders, that's really hard to read, so hopefully it's in the notes. But in theory it's a bourbon. Oh, that's where the name comes from. Okay, it says on the side of the bottle, Never Say Die was the name of a horse, evidently. Never Say Die is the English take on the American dream, the story of a champion racehorse that won against all odds, changing the course of racing and music history forever. Man, that is a lot to wrap into a story. Oh, on the night the colt was born, he nearly died. They saved him with a shot of bourbon, and he went on to win the 1945 Epsom Derby in front of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Here's to the underdogs. That's really funny. Okay. Hey, smells like bourbon. We don't know who made this. Maybe they'll talk about it. Distilled in Kentucky, bottled in the United Kingdom, and then re-imported again. Man, I don't even know how you make money after all of that changing hands. All right, so it has this sort of like light, classic, dusty corn. There's a hollow middle to the sweetness. It goes very simple corn forwards, sugars and caramels and oat tannins. And then it sort of drops off on the nose. It's a little thin on the nose. Maybe water will open it up a bit, but we'll see. Yeah, it feels, I'm lacking a better word for it, but it feels hollow. It feels like it has this nice smell, but the middle is missing. Oh, okay. So there's density in the palate, and in the palate you get like classic cherry, cola, caramel, dry oak. I mean, this is like home plate bourbon. Oh, it gets a little sweeter on the second sip. It's not just like blow your mind, wow, the best bourbon I've ever had, but it is very classic, very, like, if you like bourbon, there you go, that's bourbon, and that's a good, solid representation of bourbon. I'm struggling for other words because there's just not a lot going on other than the really stereotypical classic bourbon notes, which, I mean, it's bourbon, so why would that be a problem? But here's what I'm going to do. Before I read these other things, I'm going to add a little water. Okay. All right. A story as unique as its taste. And there's pictures of all of these people, including bands. Winston Churchill, the Beatles, Queen Elizabeth, Epsom Derby. Good Lord. Okay. This is very complicated. Never Say Die is inspired by the legend of a racehorse. Co-founder Pat Madden's family farm in Kentucky. He was born there. He was revived as a newborn foal by a lucky shot of bourbon. That's only in Kentucky does someone who owns a horse go, this horse isn't doing well. Let's give him a shot of bourbon. It's the most Kentucky thing I've ever heard. 3 years on in 1954, he went on to become the first American-born horse to win the Derby at Epsom for 70 years in front of a crowd that had Elizabeth II and Winston Churchill, Queen Elizabeth. Wow. In the run-up in Liverpool, a woman named Mona Best, inspired by Never Say Die's Against Odds story, pawned all of her jewelry and bet everything she owned on him at the odds of 33 to 1. With her new fortune, which, good Lord, she founded a music venue called the Casbah Coffee Club. Oh, and all music people have heard of that place, which where the band called the Beatles played their first gigs. Wow, they really are connected to all of these things. And yes, her son, Pete, notice the last name? Mona Best, Pete Best, joined them as a drummer. That's the original drummer to the Beatles. Wow. I should have picked that up when I read Mona Best. My music brain is failing. So they're saying the horse had a butterfly effect on history. And look, like a lot of times marketing shtick is shtick, but son of a bitch, forget about the whiskey. I would absolutely agree that that horse winning that race in England had a butterfly effect on the Beatles. That's pretty cool. I'm such a sucker for a good story. 100% Kentucky proud sourced ingredients. I really wish they would say who made it. Okay, so I will tell you the mash bill is 75214. Sound familiar? That's the MGP mash bill, but they say it's Kentucky, so I have no idea. We're going to Google and maybe we can find an answer and someone's guessed it or figured it out. But that sounds to me like Bardstown. Then I'm not saying that from taste, I'm just guessing. Because what they say is it's 75-21 for 75% corn, 21% rye, 4% malted barley. It's American oak char 4, which is not that common in the big producers. Big producers tend to live in the char 3 area. Column distillation, a minimum of 5 years old. Only 2,750 bottles per run, which is about 10 barrels, give or take. 8 to 10 barrels, depending on where it is. And then they get shipped to the UK in barrels? How is that even possible? That is interesting. So it looks like they're actually shipping the barrels of bourbon over to England and then aging them and then bottling them in England. And I don't know, I guess America doesn't have, so in Scotland you can't bottle single malt outside of Scotland. I guess America doesn't have rules about bottling Kentucky as long as the sourced product itself is actually bourbon. But what I love about this is that it was aged in a whole other climate than just Kentucky. And maybe that accounts for how light. Now that I'm going back, and did I add water to this? I don't think I added water to this. Now that I'm going back, I picked it up, and the first thing that showed up in the nose was black tea. Like a slightly spicy black tea. And after it sat for a little bit, I like the nose better. Okay, so we're going to look up screen record first. And there we go. Never Say Die Bourbon. Well, there's their website, but I doubt that their website is going to give us any more information. Bourbon Night reviewed it. Definitely go check that out. I'd be real interested. So did No Nonsense. A bunch of people have reviewed this one. Well done. Good on you. Just because it's right here. Let's look at Rob Report, I don't feel like I've ever heard of Rob Report. Oh, okay. That Rob Report. It's just a website. So this was written by Jonah Flicker. And what is he, just because I'm curious, what does he say about it? They don't know. They say it's a distillery 30 miles south of Lexington. Aged for 5 to 7 years in Kentucky before being shipped to England for a final year of maturation. So it meets all of that's like Jefferson's Ocean. That's what he says. Oh, he just said that. Yeah. Okay. So no, boo, go away. I don't want to give you my email. What do they say on the website? It looks like, oh, they've got versions. A barrel strength, a small batch. We have the small batch and the rye. And then they just tell the story that we just read. So, yeah, meh. Once again, not a lot of information. So we'll just go back to drinking it. So with water, it got grassy. The rye started the spicy sort of grassy rye notes start to come to the front of the nose. It does fill out the nose a little bit. Oh, and then it gives it this sort of like black tea cola combo. So, final conclusion, it's a good bourbon. It's a decent bourbon. Quality, no faults. Simple, not overly complex. Just it's a good bourbon. Really fun story. Pretty good bourbon. And I hope that helps. Cheers to you. I'm really glad you're here.